Hello, everyone. I'll give you a second to get connected to sound. Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 1294th New Social Environment. I'm Magali, a programs associate here at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a conversation featuring Reverend Joyce McDonald, Kyle Croft, and Sergio Bessa. And now I'll introduce today's guests and host. Kyle Croft is the executive director of Visual AIDS, where he works to preserve the legacies of artists lost to AIDS and support a global community of artists living with HIV. He has edited volumes on Darrel Ellis, Frederick Weston, and William Olander, and holds an MA in art history from Hunter College. Reverend Joyce McDonald lives and works in Brooklyn. As a teenager, she performed at the Apollo Theater in the girl group the Primettes. After her HIV diagnosis in 1995 and long battle with addiction, McDonald was ordained as a minister at the Church of the Open Door in 2009. A lifelong creative, McDonald was introduced to sculpture in the late 1990s through an art therapy program at the Jewish Board of Family Services. She was soon connected to Visual AIDS, where she has become a core member of a community of artists living with HIV. And our host today, Antonio Sergio Bessa, has organized several exhibitions, including Martin Wong, Human and Systematic, in collaboration with Yasmin Ramirez, Gordon Mata Clark, an architect, in collaboration with Jessamine Fiore, and The Life and Times of Alvin Baltrop. His essays on concrete poetry have been published in several anthologies, journals, and websites. And with that, I will hand it over to Sergio to get us started.
Thank you so much, Magley. This is lovely. And it's wonderful to be here again, Brooklyn Rail, especially for this program that is so close to my heart. I was commenting just before we started that I had the privilege to meeting Joyce when the two of us, together with other artists, presented in a panel at Apex Art in 2020. And it was a weekend, and usually I work very hard on during the week, and I was very, very tired. And Kyle asked me to go, and I said, "Okay, let's go." And I was sitting there, and then when Joyce took the podium and she began to talk about her experience, I woke up immediately. And I think that's the effect that Joyce has on people through her words and through her work. And I was just, it was one of the greatest events that I could witness. It was having the privilege to see Joyce speak. Her commitment to her church, to her religion, to her tradition. And I think this is very unique in today's art scene. And it's the kind of work that I want to be closer to and to promote. So having said that, there is this wonderful catalog that has been published by the museum in collaboration with Visual Aids. And it's a really wonderful sort of resource for getting to know more about Joyce's work. And I would like to start, Joyce, by going back to your family history, because you come from this family of forgive me if I don't express myself very well, because it's very hard to kind of explain this, but you come from affiliation of ministers. You have several uh, church ministers in your family, going back to your grandfather, as I
Yes,
understand.
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit, because also your family came from the South to New York, and can you tell us a little bit about that? You were born in the South. You are
No,
not a
I was born in
Brooklyner.
Brooklyn, but we would go every summer. We went and stayed down in Decatur, Alabama.
And I understand that your grandfather had a church it was in his home.
Soon as we would reach Decatur, Alabama, he had this big house with a big sign in the front with the name of the church. And he would say that his grandchildren was here from New York. He would give us a bullhorn and we had to sing.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Another figure that I think is very important in reading your interview for the catalog is the relationship that you had with your father. You mentioned that you were your daddy's girl, which is a lovely term, but also the picture that you draw of him is such a wonderful man. Very, very strong, very committed to his religion, to his church, but also a family man. And I love that detail that he would do your dresses.
Yeah, he was a tailor. He used
He
to
was
make,
a tailor.
yes, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about him?
Well, I used to watch him a lot too. And he worked in the post office full time, but it would be like clockwork. At 11 o'clock, you knew the bedroom door was going to be open, the windows were going to be open, and he was going to be doing breathing exercises out the window.
Amazing.
And then he would take his bike ride around, but he was always doing something, like building cabinets, building
Uh,
TVs. What I found out was because didn't have opportunities in Alabama. When he came back from the army and he got up there, he felt so blessed. Every course they had, he took a class in it. So he learned how to make a TV. He learned how to do speakers. He learned how to be a shoe repairman,
mhm.
tailor. He was a chef, and you know,
Amazing. And was your mom also from Alabama, or did they meet here?
yes, they were neighbors. They
Your
were
neighbors in Alabama.
yeah. They didn't like each other growing up. But then when he came back from the army, she was
Yeah.
the most beautiful woman he ever saw. But
So,
he had a lot of my mother made hats, she made aprons,
mhm,
made curtains and things like
mhm. That's so interesting to hear because it feels like the family history is not just uh, as strong as we can hear, but it also shaped your being
that.
because
Right.
you begin to do some tailoring, correct? And you also begin to do some hats, and it was basically picking up from what your mother and your father did.
Right. Because really, really, I felt like they used to laugh and call us the Black Brady Bunch. You can
Oh, that's great.
always singing and doing different things. And that's what we did.
I love it.
Trips every Saturday. Now, the kids, we didn't really appreciate what we had at that time because, we had to sit at the table. My father would read stories to us. You know,
Amazing.
so much, it was a lot of structure, but he had everything planned. We
Yeah.
went to different, we went to different neighborhoods
Uh-huh.
all around New York.
Amazing.
Yeah, because he said we had to, he wanted us to see different people,
Yeah.
different environments.
Yeah.
So anytime anybody came in my building and they wasn't African American, they might be Chinese or from another country, they knew they was going to the McDonald's house.
Uh-huh. That's great. That's great. And I think this picture that you are drawing there comes through very well in that beautiful painting that you have now at the museum that I think you made in 1996.
Oh, with the
That
the
it's cut around. And do you have a picture of that? Yes. It's such a lovely, lovely picture. So you were seven kids?
yeah, my mother had 7 kids, but one of them came much later.
Okay. Okay. And so I want to move on from here. Uh,
Oh, I want to mention
yeah, please.
my mother always even when she was doing housework, she was always dressed up. She always had on pearls with her apron. She was like that all the time.
And I can see that her hair is very well done. Beautiful. And so, Joyce, I want to move from here. It's this beautiful family environment that you had. And then you got in one of the most competitive schools uh, in the 60s, which was the School of the Fashions Industry, which now has become a source of a lot of interest because we know that a number of artists went to that school. Can you tell us a little bit how did you happen to go there?
It was really well. I got a 99 on my test. But I was really kind of disappointed after I got there because I had plans of going to FIT, but I had no other information,
Mhm.
the marks I would have needed to get into college. And I didn't graduate from there. I, when you get ready to tell something that you don't want to tell, but you got to tell it because it's part of the history. When
Yes,
I,
you
was,
have to.
I wanted to be a nurse. When
Oh, you're kidding me.
I
We
wanted to
didn't know about that.
be a nurse, a ballerina, and an artist. That's
Uh,
what. And so I was working with the hospital. This is the real story. I was working in the hospital and I love working with the terminally ill.
oh, wow.
Oh, I was in the 11th grade, I believe, early 11th, 10th, 11th grade. And these patients would only eat for me. I cherished doing it. And I would help the nurses give spinal taps and different things like that. I
Mhm.
remember I went to lunch when I came back. My coworkers, we was all teenagers, they thought it was funny. They said, "Oh, you got to go in the pantry. There's something in there for you." And my main person that I used to feed, he had expired. He had passed away, and it's
Oh,
me. I forgot everything. I went back to school because we would go to school a certain amount of hours. Work, and then go to school. And I
mhm.
had a big spinal tap needle that I was supposed to be putting in the pantry. When I helped the nurse, but because of this situation, it just was like a lot.
Yeah.
And some kind of way, the teacher saw the spinal tap needle in my smock. And I had never been in any trouble, not anything. I mean, we were the like most polite children, all of us
Mhm.
didn't get in no trouble.
Mhm.
And she calls me and tells me, "You have to go down to the dean's office." And I couldn't imagine why. And when I got down, there was
Oh, you're kidding me.
two,
Wow. Yeah.
two detectives down there. They arrested me and handcuffed me and took me out to school and took me to jail.
Oh my God.
And when they got before the court later on, I'm sorry, when they got before the court, they said that I was a drug dealer.
Oh.
I had syringes. They had tore open my locker, and it just was a bad time. But I still.
How old were you?
How old was I then?
Hmm.
Probably like I was in the tenth grade or 11th grade.
Hmm.
I was like 15, I think, 14, 15.
Yeah. And did they clear the situation after that, or did you get
That
a
was
record of
very,
that?
very upset. They let me go with my parents, but after that, it did a lot of damage to my mind.
Of course. Yeah.
And, but
Was after that incident that you left the school?
yes, I started playing hooky because kids started teasing me, calling me a criminal and everything. And I just
Hmm.
didn't know how to deal with that. Like that.
Hmm. Yeah. It's very sad. I'm so sorry to hear that. Um, did you meet anyone in the high school that you feel that it was sort of a positive um presence for you or influence or
I did. I had a girl that lived right across from the Lincoln Center, matter of fact, and we became best friends, and I felt like it. So she was so positive. So, we clicked so well that I felt like whatever she did, I would do. And one day, that's how I got like connected in drugs. I thought she was in the bathroom crying because she was going, but she was in there sniffing heroin, and
yeah.
she said, "Well, you don't want this." I said, "Yes, I do, because you're doing it. I don't." And I begged her, and that's how I got into. That's how I first ever experienced it.
Yeah. 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 It's when we are the most fragile, right? That things like that happen. Joyce, I want to move just a little bit further because I think the way that you reconnected with art, because you had a beginning with art in the school, but then you had that break from the school, and I assume also that you distance yourself from your family. But then when you were diagnosed with HIV, you began a workshop, uh, art therapy workshop at the Jewish Board for Families. And I think I have the utmost admiration for that, and I want to talk with Kyle later about that because I think it's these little institutions that, over the years have made such an amazing impact on culture. And could you talk a little bit how you got to them?
I got them. Well, even in my darker days when I was out there, my family was ever present. They was always present. If I called them, I knew I could come around them.
Hmm.
And they always wanted me. They always gave me love. They never treated me any different. But I treated myself different. I was so, because my dad used to always say, whatever you're going to be, you're now becoming. I mixed with the wrong people. I wound up in domestic violence. I wound up going through a period of time where all this is before I really got into drugs.
Yeah.
I wound up in domestic violence. I wound up tricked by this man that was a woman beater. I didn't know anything about that, and I started experiencing all type of things. And I stopped going around my parents around that time. Plus, I knew that I was supposed to graduate from high school, and they didn't know that I wasn't. So that helped me run away. And my dad was still very strong in my life because I would come to him when I needed him, and my mother. And he passed away. That's why the funeral scene I did that represent my dad and my brothers and sisters. And when you look at the scene, it's like, and even when I looked at it at the museum, right, it's like I'm the only one missing because at the funeral I felt like I was missing, and
It's
my
amazing.
life
Yeah.
had so much going on that at that very time that's how it looked to me. I felt like I was very tall looking down at grief, my mother, my sisters and brothers, and I decided that I would use drugs so I could not feel the pain.
Yeah.
That lasted for 25 years,
Yeah.
you know. And one day, I have, that's ironic. I didn't know how this was going to go, but I have a poem that relates to how, you know, I came out of that.
Hmm.
At the program, I was going to a HIV program. I didn't know that I needed to go to a HIV program. God, who is very strong in my life and very present, he, I wind up being snatched out the hand of the enemy. That's what I would call it. That whole way I was living, I thought I had planned to die using drugs. I didn't ever think I would live past 35.
Amazing.
And all of a sudden, I found myself back at the church where I used to sing in the choir when I was a little girl.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to be Mahalia Jackson. I used to fix my hair like hers. And I was there. So the new pastor that was there, which I met him, that's so funny because I wrote the poem I'm going to read
Hmm.
about that scene. It's crazy. It's just ironic.
So
And
it's kind of interesting because, and to stop me if I'm wrong here, but the whole work with clay was very new for you, but you could have done something different. You could have gone through sewing or writing poetry. What what brought you to working with clay?
right, okay, so my pastor told me he understood how happy I was because I had found freedom within myself and with God, right? And he said, have you ever taken the HIV test? And I was like, why would I take that? He said, well, you kind of had some risky behavior. When I think back, I love how he presented it to me. He said, you know, you need to take the HIV test. And I was like apprehensive. I didn't see why. I had went from 110 pounds to 150. I had a shape. You couldn't tell me nothing. I was happy. And I did go. And when I went, I found out I was HIV positive. And then my doctor, my regular doctor, HIV doctor, he told me about a program for Jewish Board of Family Services. He said, you need to empower yourself with education because in the community where I grew up, where it was a loving community, everybody was your parent. It was one big village. When HIV came on the scene, drugs too, but especially HIV, people were putting their kids out. Their love wasn't strong enough to deal with AIDS. They didn't call it HIV then, they call it AIDS. And families was broken up, kids, mothers were living on the street. So I had said to myself, if I ever found out, oh, plus that dark period of time, I was suicidal because I just couldn't understand from how I was raised, how I got where I was and the things that I was involved in. So anyway, I went to this 8-day program and I, casually was listening to the information they was giving me. And then it was an art therapy, a therapist there, and they had art. And I remember I used to do little sketches. But then he said, you know what? I think you would do good with clay. And he gave me a piece of clay. And when he gave me that clay, it's like a part of me that wasn't alive that came alive. And I could not stop doing these sculptures. I missed it. A lot of things are coming back that I hadn't even thought of. The first 5 pieces I made was small enough to go in a shoebox out of the clay. And I would go from the program to my mom's house, to my house, and I would carry these 5 little pieces in the shoebox. And I remember a teacher that worked at the daycare where I walked past, she said, what's in your shoebox? And I was very protective over it because later on, I knew, I didn't understand what was happening. It was pieces of the dark secrets of my life.
Yeah.
Things I was going through that was coming out in the clay, and I had no control over it. I had no idea what I was going to make. It just would just come, and that still happens to me today.
Yeah, it's such a strange material that you work with your hands and you shape things. But it's very interesting that you took this opportunity, and not that you took the opportunity, but through the process, you recreated scenes of your life, and it might have been really overwhelming for you to just see those shapes coming out of the clay.
Yes, I used to call the art therapist, which he actually came up here from California because I hadn't seen him for 25 years.
Wow.
I would call him. I would start doing a piece, and then I just didn't understand what would be happening because it was what I would see as I'm creating it is nothing I can do to stop. I don't know what, and I would call him crying.
Yeah.
And I remember the first paint, I didn't realize I was being freed up because these were deep, dark secrets that was buried within me. And one of the first ones I did was like a baby fetus.
Yeah.
That scene there, it still rocks me when I look at it, when I go to the museum.
Well, I think it rocks anyone who sees that. It's so raw and it's so packed with the emotion. It's an amazing piece, and I every time I see your work, it's like it amazes me how you master this, because there are some images, for example, I think you did a portrait of your father that it's just like amazing. So how you could manage that, but also the emotional impact of some of these images are just like really remarkable. And then I just want to get to Kyle because I want to give Kyle an opportunity to talk a little bit and ask questions to you too. But it was through the Jewish board that your work got to the attention of visual aids and you became a visual aids artist?
Yes. And I always say now I'm a visual age grandma because I've been there so long.
And we're happy with that. So, Kyle, do you want to talk a little bit about how that process happened, how you got to know Joyce's work and working with her, and how the exhibition came into being?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll start with just to continue the kind of historical narrative of how Joyce came to be connected to visual aids. And when I was working on the show, I talked to Robert Morrissey, who is the art therapist that Joyce mentioned earlier, and he explained to me that Barbara Hunt McClanahan, who was the executive director of visual aids in the late 90s, had reached out to him and a number of other art therapy programs across the city saying, visual aids is looking to connect with artists who are living with HIV and or people who are living with HIV who are making art who may or may not kind of have assumed the identity of an artist yet, but that are, the visual aids archive and slide registry was open to um, document and preserve the work of any and every artist living with HIV who's interested. And so that I believe Joyce got connected to visual aids through this calendar that we used to produce every year. So it was kind of a competition.
Mhm.
12 artists would be selected and their artwork would be featured. And Joyce, I think you told me that was such a kind of the first moment you had really shared your work with the world and seen it be validated in that way, right?
Mhm.
And so that we have that calendar in the vitrine here at the exhibition, but
Yeah.
and that kind of was the beginning of a long relationship between visual aids and Joyce in terms of helping to show her work and document it.
Mhm.
Um, I came to visual aids in 2015 as an intern and remember meeting Joyce, who, yeah, I think grandma is it works, or I've been calling you an iconic visual aids personality, and I feel like you really helped kind of coax me out of my shell. And we've known each other for about a decade now, but when the opportunity came to do this show with the Bronx Museum, it's kind of also a big shift for visual aids. We've presented exhibitions, since we were founded in the late 80s, but this is the first time we've really presented a solo exhibition. And I
Mhm.
just want to acknowledge the Bronx Museum has been such an incredible collaborator. I want to thank Eileen Jang Lynch, who's on in the Zoom with us, who really helped bring the show to life here, and Lily McKeerchin. But this is kind of a new paradigm for visual aids to be like really spotlighting the work of an artist that we've supported. And I just
Mhm.
feel really grateful that we had the opportunity to do it with Joyce and to also kind of shed light on um, a narrative or an aspect of the AIDS crisis that's gets a lot less representation, which is that of women living with HIV and thinking about drug use as a kind of vector of transmission and to kind of uplift these stories.
Yeah. Can you also please speak a little bit more about your process of kind of diving into this very rich body of work and how it resonates with the because a visual aids has a huge registry, a lot of different things, but in that context, this is very unique, right? And you did an amazing job with the exhibition. And I know that you worked very closely with Joyce, and even the installation. I was really stunned by the installation. And then you told me that you wanted to replicate some of previous installations that Joyce had done. So there is a lot of respect in your show to the artist as the producer, but also, um, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, the artists that Visual Aids work with really span, like our registry and our artist members, um, it's really quite an expansive group of artists, like who, much more expansive than I think what you see in the art world or the commercial art world. And so when there are these kind of opportunities that we're able to provide a kind of a major platform for artists and show them in new contexts, it felt like something to approach with kind of thought and intention to be to kind of pay respect and honor the way that Joyce has been showing and presenting her work, since the late 90s, and not to frame it as like this is the first time the work has been seen. Um, and so I've spent a lot of time looking through all these photographs that Joyce shared with me of all of, you know, from like putting her sculptures in park benches to the first show that she organized at her church, the Church of the Open Door, to these lectures that she was organizing around the city at community centers and colleges, speaking about her experiences with HIV and addiction, by kind of using her work as talking points. I love this photo of a Visual Aids exhibition in 2001, I believe, that with a David Wojnarowicz screen print in the background, and thinking
Yeah,
about the fact that Visual Aids has been bringing together these different kind of corners of the
exactly.
cultural, the broader art world.
Yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, when doing the show, I kind of wanted to think about these different registers. And so calls herself a testimonial artist, and her life story is so important to understanding the work and the way she presents it. So we really wanted to have her voice in the catalog
mhm,
and the programming that we're doing here at the museum, but then also to really let the artwork speak for itself and to kind of
yeah,
invite people to engage with it on a formal
yeah,
level. So the presentation in the gallery is quite sparse in terms of didactics. And really we wanted to present the work kind of in conversation with itself. And this is where we kind of took some cues from some of Joyce's exhibitions, which, as you're seeing, would kind of use a tabletop surface or even a stairway. Um, so I worked with the architect La Shia, who kind of designed this large pedestal that you can see behind me, and some of the other exhibition furniture that was riffing on this idea of the
yeah.
staircase and the kind of improvised exhibition space. And,
I,
and
I I think it was a very happy kind of solution because sometimes when you are presenting a work like Joyce's, which is so raw and so charged and so personal, and then you put in a public context, it becomes a little bit too cleaned up. But although the installation is very elegant, there is something very unique to that, and I think it's the references to how she showed her work originally. So, can we talk a little bit about some of the imagery, Kyle? Some elements in her work that keeps repeating, and I'm thinking here the kneeling figures, uh,
Mhm.
which are so powerful. And of course, it has a lot of tradition in representation, but also in terms of Joyce, because she's a woman of the church, it has a very special kind of meaning. Can we talk a little bit about that? I love this trio of singing choirs, or it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, and I'm indebted to Joyce again. Like when I came over to see some, work and we're working on the checklist, this is the way that she had presented those three sculptures. They're technically two works. The women in white are the Hallelujah ladies. I'm forgetting the name of the other sculpture, but kind of grouping them in conversation, Lady Praise. I mean, and Joyce, please chime in. I think prayer comes up a lot in the work, right? Rest. There's the figures that are kneeling like this, but there's also the ones that are almost in a kind of fetal position. and I've been like fascinated and keep speaking about the kind of emotional um ambiguity maybe, or just like the kind of multivalence, the layering of like, is it rest? Is it pain? Is it burden? Is it relief? The kind of the way that kind of the good and the bad, for lack of a better word, get are so intertwined in these figures. And Joyce, I was also remembering when you were speaking about your father earlier, you told this anecdote in the interview with Raphael about how you had kind of started sketching him while he was napping. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes. I think I was about 6 years old. He was laying on the couch getting ready to go to work. And he said, let me take 5. And he went to sleep for 5 minutes and I was sketching. Yeah.
Because you and Raphael were talking about all of the closed eyes in your sculptures. And do you think that's related to that like moment of rest being kind of a early artistic inspiration?
Yes. And I think it's related to prayer. It's also related to, in some of my sculptures, I could see that the eyes are closed because they can't take what they're seeing. Somebody, I don't know who it was, one of the art people that was at the museum the other day, she showed me pictures of me when I'm little and I'm always looking over to the right, like my eyes are shifting. And a lot of my work was like that. I didn't realize that till the other day.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. It's like a state of overwhelm.
Yeah. Yeah. Joyce, there is also a lot of emphasis on faces, like these beautiful women faces. And you yourself, you are a very beautiful woman. And how how do how those works come about? What is your thinking when you're doing those faces?
I can't, that's a question I can't answer because it seemed like I feel like I zone out. I zone into a place. I feel now, I used to always tell people, oh, yeah, I feel something when I'm touching the clay. But
Hmm.
I feel like I'm feeling the spirit of God when I'm touching it. I don't know. Somebody just asked me, how long does it take you to make a sculpture? I had no idea because I've been this almost it's like a secret place I've
Yeah,
been.
yeah, yeah. That's wonderful to know. There is also something interesting in the making of this, that it's this particular, I want to keep in this image for 1 second, because you bring non-traditional elements to the sculpture, like the beads, but also you puncture, you made these holes at the base. So it seems that the process that you do is very layered with a lot of different kind of different moments. And even the teeth, are the teeth painted or it's a different material?
Now that they're painted, and
They're painted.
I think
Yeah. So I think in those in sculptures like this, there is such a freedom of working with clay and bringing in the making sort of different materials and different approaches to that. And I think it's really lovely.
Yeah, and one thing I've been noting when giving tours of the show is the use of jewelry also in Joyce, and just the way that you speak about your parents and their kind of creative practices and their kind of like expertise and just crafting whatever was needed out of what was at hand. And I think that's very much how you approach your sculptures, where I think you were talking about at the event we did here a few months ago, um, just cutting up t-shirts and curtains and whatever fabric was around in order to, dress your figures. So if I guess I have an association where it feels like a kind of a continuity between just the way that you or that your mother kind of would present herself to the world, and that you're extending that to your sculptures.
Yeah, yeah. And can we go to the image of I don't know how to say his name, Copernic?
oh,
Yeah.
right.
which is an amazing. I think this is such a remarkable piece because it is the kneeling, it is the respect, but it's also an act of defiance. And it's I was very curious on how you got to think about doing this work. And it's a beautiful work, by the way.
Now, this story with the kneeling and everything. I don't know. One day it was like, you have to do him. I heard a voice because I hear voices from God. I do to do him. And it's funny, I started it over a period of 2 months, a little bit here and a little bit there. But when I really got into it, right when I finished, the Black Lives Matter movement started. Because the day I finished it, all of a sudden I started doing a different preparation, like with paper, every hour I was doing the space that I was working in. And I didn't understand. It's like he led me into
Mhm.
the other sculptors of George Floyd and all the other ones, people that were the part of the Black Lives uh,
Right.
movement. It was like a setup. I remember I said, let me finish this because I'm taking too long. And
Yeah.
it was that same night the news came on with George Floyd and
Yeah.
Breonna. And that was like my worst art week I ever had in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a very good pairing to see the two pieces side by side. Um,
Yeah, there's a small grouping of work in the exhibition that's work that you made during 2020, Joyce, right? Which is both the Our Lives Mattered series, but then also some figures with masks, kind of referencing COVID.
Yeah. Yes.
And I mean, just on the topic of eyes, I think you've spoken a bit about your choice to depict George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others with their eyes open. I wonder if you want to share it a little bit about that.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing the eyes, it was like, no, we're not going to close our eyes to this. It was like, we have to see. And I think that's what their eyes represented, what they saw, what we see in that whole movement. And I could have closed the eyes and it would have looked at like they were praying or they were asleep, but I just was moved to leave their eyes open, all of them.
Can I, I'm realizing it's not in the slide deck, but maybe I'll just bring the camera over. Joyce, do you want to talk about the other portrait of George Floyd that's in the show?
Oh, the one that's the mosaic?
Yeah.
Yes. The first one I did, because I did George Floyd a few times, it was you know how when I don't know if well, I knew it was a masterpiece. It looked exactly, it was eerie. It said like that looks like him, but it doesn't look like him the way this did. And I did it in ceramics. These here were done air dry. And I remember my instructor, we put it in that Friday, and that Monday she came, and it was the best. There's no perfect piece, but it was the best of my work. And it had blew up in the kiln and it had got shattered. She said, I got bad news. Your sculpture blew up in the kiln. And the only thing I was asking her, I said, well, do you still have the pieces from it? She said, yeah, they're still in the bottom. And she gave me all the pieces. And there were certain pieces, I think it was the nose, the mouth, certain things, and I was able to preserve them. And it reminded me of how life could be shattered, how life can just go into a whole lot of pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Kyle, do you want to say anything else?
Um, Maybe just we could talk a little bit about some of the other glazed and fired pieces in the show because that's another
Sure.
kind of recent development for you,
Yeah.
Joyce. Um, I think there's a few of those in the slides, but one of I think overall, like one of the things that I have really developed a greater appreciation for in your practice, Joyce, is like this very kind of artistic problem-solving way of thinking where you're able to like approach new materials or just use whatever's at hand and turn it into, something beautiful. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it was like to start working with glazes and firing and the kind of accidents and unexpected results that came from that.
Well, what I did realize that it was for me, because I was always trying to make something, and I know I couldn't make it perfect. So it would be a lot of cracks and different things that would happen, but also while I would be making it, I would see faces. That's why you see that lady's face up there. It would amaze me. I would be doing Chloe. I had no intentions of a face appearing, and a face would appear, and I would just go ahead and use it. And a lot of the cracks, I not cover them, but I outlined them because they help make the person there, things could be put back together again, maybe not the way it was, it represents a lot of things.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I think we are coming very close to the end, and I want to bring back Joyce to that talk, which impressed me so much in 2020, Joyce, that the way that I took it was that you had this revelation in the middle of the street. You mentioned, and I am misquoting you, but you mentioned that you were using drugs and you were at the bottom of the well, and then you were walking on the street, perhaps in Brooklyn, and then you saw the sign of a church that said something to you and reminded you of your own heritage with your family affiliation to churches and your father and your grandfather. And then you decided to quit drugs and so forth. Am I remembering?
It's like you're setting up my poem.
Okay,
You are actually setting up the poem.
okay, wonderful. But before you say your poem, I want to talk about this issue of visions.
Yeah.
Because vision, of course, all of us who went through Catholic school or religious schools, we read the Bible and we have all these stories of people who had visions, and they changed they became saints, or they changed their lives because of visions that they had. And I was very taken with you bringing up this issue of vision in this very context of New York, which is a city that is so materialistic, and that's, in a sense, it's the contrary of vision. But when I see your work, I see nothing but vision. And you mentioned something really beautiful several times, that when you do your work, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know it's a creation. It's the work, in a sense, is the thing telling you who you are. And you bring up or you materialize these visions. So I'm sorry, I don't want to talk too much, but I would love to hear.
I love hearing.
I would love to hear from you about this issue of vision and your religion and so forth.
Well, I grew up knowing that my grandmother, who passed away when she was 106, that they always said the story was she can see things. She would know things. She would think things, tell my mother and her sibling things, and they were things that would happen. And my mother, it was a gift. From what I understand, my mother had it. She would know things the same way. But when I didn't understand, I had it. I had it from a little girl, and I would like when we had to go to sleep, I would start screaming because when I would open my eyes, I would always see something. And my dad would come in my room and my mom. A lot of times they would light a candle, they said, or turn the light on. They said, what you see is the same thing that's there when we turn the light out.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt like things was like that. It was never the same thing. So I would see things, and that's one of the reasons I spent a lot of time in the G building too, because I couldn't understand that I saw visions. I couldn't understand that I would know things, and then they would, they would manifest. I just couldn't understand it, and I know that God was trying to reach me through my clay. I know things now that I did not know at all. And because I didn't have no understanding about visions or
Yeah.
it made me like go crazy and think something was really wrong with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like we go through, drugs or things like that because it's a substitution for vision, for knowing how to accept the vision and how to work that vision. Anyways, I just felt like I needed to bring this up because that made such an impact on me when you told the audience about the moment when you decided that you couldn't live that life that you were living previously. And I thought it was a very remarkable day for me. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. Magli, how are you doing with time?
We can switch over to audience questions now. We have a couple questions lined up. First, thank you all so much. This has been so wonderful to listen to. If anyone in the audience has a question for Joyce or Kyle, please feel free to submit it in the link in the chat, and we will turn to you next. The first question comes from Roz. I'll give you a chance to unmute, Roz.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from the booming metropolis of Shelter Island. Shall I go ahead? Joyce, I wanted to ask you, I forgive me if I missed it because I came in a little late and I'm sorry about that, but I wanted to ask how you view your ministry. Is it entirely through your art? Are you a more conventional minister as well, or just can you talk about that a little bit? I'm an interfaith minister, but I know I'm big on the story of Jesus, and so I just am really, and my art is totally connected to my spirit side. I just wonder if you could talk to it a little bit.
Like I really did when I first started doing my art, I actually had just got saved. That was that connection like that. And I myself believe in Christ. I believe that Christ intervened my crisis. I have a whole nother way, it's not a different way of talking, but the way I explain things. And like I said, it's all in this poem too. I just can't believe that that's the question that she asked too.
Oh, wonderful. I can't wait to hear that. Anyway, it's a broad question, but
Yes.
I feel like we're all ministers in a way, and he was in the wilderness, Jesus. That's the kind of way I see him. And I don't know, you're out there. It's great.
That's funny. Like when people say, well, where were you doing this? I said, I was in Egypt.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, yes, I definitely, so I got ordained in 2009, but I've been doing the art since all that time before that I was doing the art. But I knew where my anchor was.
It's nice to have an anchor. It's important. Yeah, that's nice. Thank you. Thank you so much for your work. It's very emotional and compelling.
And Joyce, do you want to share at all about the AIDS ministry that you were part of at your church, or the Keep Your Pearls girls?
Yeah, I had the AIDS ministry at Church of my Open Door. We now call it the HIV Ministry of Hope. And I did that for years and years and years. And I took care of my mother for a few years because she had dementia. I took care of her at home. So I took like a reprieve. I never stopped, but there's always another way to do ministry, right? And
Yeah.
then I'm back to leading the ministry now, getting ready for World AIDS Day. And but from being a little girl, it didn't come out here, but I got molested by a neighbor when I was 5 years old. I never told anybody, not even my parents, because I felt like I did something wrong. And I have a real special heart for little girls, for girls. And one day I was doing some art and I was drawing this lady with these pearls on her. And I was saying, oh, that reminds me of my mother. And the Lord said to me, keep your pearls, girls. And that became a group that I've done, giving girls HIV awareness, helping them with self-esteem, pointing them toward a relationship with God, doing art. Art was our main creative way. I don't know if that answered the question.
It can't be answered really, but it's
Thank you.
I agree with you there. It's all about the questions. It's not
Yeah.
the questions you ask. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Roz, and that answer, Joyce. The next question is going to come from Eileen, and I'll give you a chance to unmute, Eileen.
Hi, everyone. Greetings from the Bronx Museum. Thank you so much, Joyce, Kyle, and Sergio, for this wonderful conversation, and Magley and the Brooklyn Rail. Joyce, I'm noticing through your 75 pieces here at the museum that there's a recurring color palette in your work, the reds, the purples, the golds, the silver. I'm wondering if you could discuss a little bit more about that.
Oh, different colors, right. I don't know, a lot of time I'm just drawn to certain colors, like I was drawn to purple, I was drawn to red. Anytime I use red, it represents, for me, it represents the blood of Jesus that was shed on the cross. It represents love. It represents, but it's not that I go and try to figure out what I'm gonna use. It's just whatever comes at that moment. Like this jacket, like I asked somebody, I said, I'm feeling really terrible today. It's like a blue Monday. And I'm the one that gets the opposite. I'll do the opposite of what's going on. I said, let me go get a real lively jacket in my little queen. Yeah. Because I don't know if it's common knowledge. I'm dealing with the after effects of radiation, which has really changed a whole lot in the way I talk, just a lot. I can't really eat. And I'm always a surprise person on Zoom because I always have a piece of art. And this reminds me of, I did this years ago, but it reminds me of the pain, the after effects of radiation. Mm-hmm. That's what that does. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just always have a piece by me. Now, will I get an opportunity? Here I go. Will I get an opportunity to read this poem?
Yes.
I will. Thank you. Oh, I gotta wait for questions. Any more questions?
Yes, we do have a couple more questions, but we're all excited for the poem.
Okay.
The next question is going to come from Josh. I'll give you a chance to unmute.
Hi there, Joyce. Thank you so much for such a wonderful conversation.
Yes.
I know you mentioned that you've been involved with visual aids so long now that you've assumed visual aids grandma status. I'm curious
I'm
as
the great grandma.
I'm curious if during your time at visual aids, if you ever met or came across any other artists that were also involved with visual aids that specifically contoured or shaped your work as you were making it.
Shape my work. No, because I don't know, like a lot of times, like with the work itself, being that my influence comes straight there, I can't answer that. But Fred, the artist Fred, what is his last name? Kyle, that passed away? Fred
Weston.
Yes. He was the first artist I met when I came aboard with visual aids. And we used to laugh. He would say after a while, he said, they're gonna think I'm your husband or something, because we would go different places to speak and he would always come.
Yes.
And he would speak. And can I talk about him for a second? He had this picture, it was perfect. It was all these little colors. We was at this big college and I was waiting to do my presentation. And then after he had us look closer at this picture, it was clutter. He ruined my whole life that day. Because he started talking about clutter. I just thought I had sloppy stuff, but I had clutter. But this picture, that's what really sticks out for me. But he was a very, very wonderful artist. And we did a lot of art shows together through visual aids.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
Fred also got connected to visual aids. I believe he was in the art therapy program at Village Care, which is another HIV/J program, probably around the same time that you connected, Joyce.
Wow.
But yeah, and is also represented, his estate is represented by Gordon Robichaux. Definitely, if folks on here haven't seen Fred's work, please check out his page on the Visual Aids website.
Thank you for that question, Josh. I have the last question, Joyce. I was wondering what your time in the girl group with the Primettes was like.
Oh, when we used to sing it. Well, Stephanie Mills ended our career. She beat us though. They used to have where if you in the 4 weeks, you get the record deal. She came on and she was 13 years old. And we laughed at her. She sang Exodus, ended our career. But before that, we won everywhere we went. We went to Coca-Cola contest, Pepsi contest, every theater, every talent show we would win. As a matter of fact, that kind of kept me like out of trouble because I didn't really start getting in trouble till we got out of till like.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I will give you the chance to introduce your poem and share it with us.
I'm going to read the end of it first because I didn't even know this till this morning. It says, this poem, the first of 8, came forth at 4:30 a.m. on January 4th, 2004, the 26th anniversary of my dad, William McDonald's homegoing service. I didn't even remember writing that. Okay. Okay, it goes like this. Wait, I got it. Standing in stairways, street corners, sitting in windows, watching and listening, the word has been sent. I hear church service. Oh, look, there's a tent outside in the projects. We knew not what it meant. Sounds like I hear him saying, it's time to repent. Through the airways, the word has been sent. We thank God for the church under the tent. The word has been sent. That day, Jesus entered many hearts. Receiving his Holy Spirit, people came out of the dark. He turned their lives around and gave them a new start. People in stairways, street corners, sitting in windows. Yes, the word has been sent. The preacher preached salvation is free from under the tent. Yes, Jesus loves you. The word has been sent. Sitting in her window, shooting dope, not knowing what it meant. 3 months later, she heard God's voice on York Street. His word has been sent. She gave her life to Jesus Christ. God sent a man from Chicago to Brooklyn. He was truly sent. He was blessed with gifts and visions, one being giving a church service under the tent. Yes, this man is a prophet. He is truly sent. Thank God for his vision to preach from under the tent. The word has been sent.
Beautiful.
He never even heard this poem. My bastard.
Thank you so much, Joyce. That was so beautiful and such a beautiful way to close us out. And thank you, Kyle and Sergio. Thank you to Sam and Mara from Gordon Robichaux and Adam from Cultural Council for all of their support in preparing for today's event. We'd also like to thank the Terra Foundation for American Art and Tiger Foundation for sponsoring our NSC program and making these daily conversations possible, and for their support of our growing archive, which you can view on the Rails YouTube channel. The Rail has been free and independent for 25 years. A donation directly supports our writers, staff, and operations. Support our work through the link in the chat. And if you're free, join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for a conversation with Ragnar Kjartansson and Barbara London on the event of Sunday Without Love at Luring Augustine. And as Israel tradition, you can now all unmute and say hello and goodbye as you leave. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you for this.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so
Joyce
much.
and Sergio.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Joyce.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Joyce. Thank you, Sergio. Congratulations. Keep up the great work. Reverence.
And go see the show.
God bless us all.
Can I say one final thing? Thank you so much, Joyce. So lovely
Thank you,
to see you. But I am now stuck with this image that Liz came up with, that Jesus was in the wilderness. We are still in the wilderness. And it's the work of places like Brooklyn Rail and the Visual Weights and the Jewish Board and your church and all these little grassroots. So let's all be together in the wilderness and make it happen.
Absolutely.
Big hug.
Big hug. Thank you, Sergio.
Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you. Thank you so much.